The moment my mother-in-law wore a literal wedding dress to my wedding, I thought I'd seen the absolute worst of family betrayal. But I was wrong. True malice doesn't come from the people who hate you openly. It doesn't come from your enemies or rivals. It comes from the ones who claim to love you the most. It comes from the people who shared your dinner table, the ones who know your deepest vulnerabilities, and the ones who share your exact blood. 2 weeks before my wedding, I was sitting in a high-end restaurant in downtown Boston. It was a beautiful, crisp evening in May 2026. The average cost of a wedding venue around here right now is easily $30,000. And my fiancé, Ethan, and I had worked our corporate fingers to the bone to pay for every single cent ourselves. No handouts, no family money, no loans, just us. We were celebrating finishing our final seating chart, laughing over some appetizers, when my mother and my younger sister Chloe walked into the restaurant. They weren't invited to this dinner. In fact, they weren't even supposed to know we were here. But my mother has a spare key to my apartment that she refused to give back, and she had snooped through my personal planner the week before. My mom sat down in the empty booth right next to Ethan, not even bothering to look at me or acknowledge my existence. She looked directly at Ethan, her face twisting into a mask of fake, suffocating maternal concern. She reached across the white tablecloth, placing her hand gently over his. Her voice was dripping with a sickly sweet tone that made my stomach instantly turn. "Ethan, honey," she said, sighing dramatically as if carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders, "I can't let you go through with this. I've kept quiet for too long and it has been eating me alive. But my conscience simply won't allow me to stay silent anymore. She only wants you for your money." I froze in my seat. My silver fork clinked loudly against the edge of the porcelain plate. Ethan's family wasn't old money wealthy, but he was a senior software architect making a very comfortable $250,000 a year. I made a decent living myself as a marketing manager. But to my mother, any man with a healthy 401k and a stable investment portfolio was a target. For years, she had tried to control my finances, demanding I pay for Chloe's private college tuition, Chloe's monthly car notes, and my mom's own mounting credit card debts from her severe shopping addictions. When I finally drew a hard line and cut them off financially 6 months ago, I became the ultimate villain in their eyes. But even after all that drama, I never expected a public execution like this. "Mom, what on earth are you talking about?" I whispered, my hands starting to visibly shake. Before my mom could even open her mouth to spin another lie, Chloe chimed in. She was slowly swirling her iced coffee, a sickening, arrogant smirk plastered completely across her face. She looked at me with pure venom in her eyes. "Oh, stop acting so innocent," Chloe sneered, leaning aggressively across the table so the waiters wouldn't overhear. "Ethan, she's completely gaslighting you. Just ask her about the man she's been hiding from you, the one she spends hours texting when you're stuck at the office. The one she's been secretly seeing behind your back for months?" My heart dropped straight into my stomach, not because I was guilty of anything, but because I suddenly realized the terrifying scope of what they were trying to achieve. In the United States, a messy, high-income divorce can drain a man's assets completely, and prenuptial agreements are heavily scrutinized by the courts. My mom and Chloe knew that Ethan and I hadn't signed a prenup yet. We were legally scheduled to meet our family estate attorney the following Tuesday morning to finalize the paperwork. By framing me as a cheating, gold-digging fraud exactly 2 weeks before the big day, they weren't just trying to break up our relationship. They were trying to completely isolate me from my support system, ruin my professional reputation, and force me back into a desperate position where I would have to rely on them moving forward, and consequently, give them access to my corporate bank accounts all over again. I looked over at Ethan. His jaw was tightly clenched, his sharp eyes locked onto my mother's face. I didn't defend myself. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, and I didn't utter a single defensive word. Why?
Because I knew from years of trauma that trying to argue with narcissists in a public place only makes you look like the unstable one. If I started screaming that I was innocent, it would look like I was panicking. So I just sat there, taking a slow, controlled sip of my water, watching the trap they thought they had so perfectly laid out for me. My mom took my cold silence as an immediate victory. She leaned back against the plush leather booth, sighing dramatically as she adjusted her designer jacket. "See, Ethan, she can't even deny it. The guilt is written all over her face. We have undeniable proof. We know for a fact that she's been secretly taking cash out of your joint savings account to support this man." That specific part was a flat-out lie. In the US, modern banking apps track every single transaction down to the exact millisecond. You can't just hide cash withdrawals without a push notification popping up on both of our phones instantly. But my mom didn't understand how modern digital banking structures worked. She was still living in the old era of paper checkbooks and cash envelopes. Chloe nodded her head eagerly, tapping her manicured nails on the table. "Exactly. She thinks she's so incredibly smart. But we know everything about him. Ask her, Ethan. Ask her right now." Ethan slowly took his hand back from under my mother's grasp. He didn't turn to look at me with any shred of suspicion. He didn't look angry at me at all. Instead, a terrifyingly cold, calm smile crept onto his face. He slowly reached into his inner blazer pocket. My mom and Chloe watched his hand with intense anticipation, probably expecting him to pull out his phone to call off the wedding and cancel the venue right then and there. Instead, Ethan pulled out a physical, printed photograph. It was a high-resolution, glossy print, the exact kind you get from a local CVS pharmacy photo kiosk. He didn't hand it over to them. He just placed it completely flat on the table, slid it right in front of my mother's face, and looked her dead in the eye.
"You mean this man?" Ethan asked, his voice deadpan, chillingly calm. My mother's breath caught in her throat. She looked down at the photograph, and the smug expression on her face vanished so fast it was almost comical. Chloe leaned over her shoulder to get a better look, and the color instantly drained from her skin, leaving her as pale as a sheet. The man in the picture wasn't a secret lover of mine. He wasn't a mystery boyfriend. He was Marcus Vance, my mother's ex-husband, who she claimed had vanished out of the state 5 years ago after stealing her life savings. But the photo Ethan had placed on the table wasn't an old memory. It was a crystal-clear, high-definition security snap taken just 4 days ago, outside a luxury apartment complex in downtown Boston. And right next to Marcus in the photo, holding a brand-new designer shopping bag, was my mother. "You thought you were being incredibly clever, didn't you?" Ethan said, leaning forward, resting his forearms on the table. His voice was a low, dangerous whisper that didn't carry past our booth, but it had the weight of a sledgehammer. "You thought because I work in tech, I just sit behind a desk and write code all day. You forgot that my firm specializes in cybersecurity and digital forensics for the federal government. I don't just build firewalls, Mrs. Vance. I track digital footprints, and your family has been leaving a trail a mile wide." I watched my sister Chloe try to stammer out a defense, her hands trembling as she dropped her spoon into her coffee. This is photoshopped," she lied, her voice cracking under the pressure. "This doesn't prove anything about what she's been doing behind your back. Ethan, you're being blind." "Shut up, Chloe," Ethan said smoothly, not even raising his voice, but the sheer authority in his tone silenced her instantly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, sleek tablet, placing it right next to the photograph. "6 months ago, when my fiancé cut you both off financially, our joint account flagged an unauthorized login attempt. It came from an IP address registered to an iPad inside your house, Mom. You had my social security number from our old tax forms, and you thought you could use it to slip into our accounts and authorize a monthly transfer." My mother sat there, frozen, her lips parting but no sound coming out.
When that happened, Ethan continued, tapping the screen of the tablet to reveal a massive spreadsheet of data. I didn't tell her right away. I wanted to see exactly how far you two would go. And honestly, you surpassed my expectations. You didn't just try to steal from our savings. 3 months ago, you and Chloe opened a fraudulent business credit line using her identity. You forged her electronic signature on a commercial loan application for $85,000. My jaw dropped. I knew they were desperate, but I had no idea they had gone that far. In the United States, identity theft is a heavy federal crime. But using someone's clean credit to secure a commercial loan across state lines elevates it to wire fraud, which carries a massive prison sentence. And you want to know what the best part is? Ethan smiled, looking directly at Chloe, who was now visibly shaking. You used a virtual burner number to send those fake texts to your own phone, pretending to be her secret man. But you bought that burner app using a prepaid Visa card that you purchased at a Target on 5th Street. I have this store surveillance footage of you standing at the register buying that exact card at 2:14 p.m. on a Tuesday. You see, Chloe, every digital action has a physical reaction. You wanted to frame my fiancé for a fake affair to cancel our wedding so you could force her back into your house and drain her corporate salary to pay off Marcus's gambling debts.
My mother finally found her voice, though it was nothing more than a desperate, pathetic squeak. Ethan, please, it's not what it looks like. Marcus was threatening us. He said he would take the house if we didn't give him the money. We are a family. You have to understand. We were just trying to survive. Survive? I finally spoke up, my voice cold and entirely devoid of the empathy I had wasted on them for years. You tried to ruin my life, destroy my career reputation, and wreck my relationship 2 weeks before my wedding just to fund a criminal who abandoned us years ago? You didn't care if I ended up on the street as long as your precious Marcus got his pockets lined. Chloe stood up abruptly, her chair screeching violently against the floor. We don't have to listen to this. Come on, Mom, let's go. They don't have anything real on us. It's just bluffing. I wouldn't walk out that door if I were you, Chloe, Ethan said, looking up at her with a calm, pitying expression. He tapped the screen one final time. Before we sat down for appetizers tonight, I hit send on an encrypted file. It went directly to the Massachusetts State Police Economic Crimes Unit and the Fraud Division of the IRS. I didn't just send them the photos. I sent them the bank logs, the IP signatures, the Target surveillance footage, and the full address of the apartment Marcus is currently hiding in under a fake name. Just as the words left his mouth, the heavy glass doors of the restaurant swung open. 2 plainclothes detectives in dark suits stepped into the dining room, followed by the restaurant manager who was pointing directly at our table. The 2 plainclothes detectives walked with purpose across the crowded dining room, their badges glinting under the warm restaurant lights. My mother gasped, a sharp, choked sound escaping her lips as she instinctively tried to hide her face behind her napkin. Chloe froze solid next to the table, her hand still gripping the back of her chair so tightly her knuckles turned white. The surrounding tables had fallen completely silent, every diner turning around to watch the real-life felony arrest happening right next to their dinners. Officer Davis, the lead detective, stepped up to our booth and looked directly at my mother, asking her to confirm her full legal name. When she couldn't answer, her lower lip trembling in pure terror, he pulled a pair of heavy steel handcuffs from his belt. He calmly informed her that she was being placed under arrest for federal wire fraud, felony identity theft, and grand larceny. The female detective stepping up next to him grabbed Chloe's arm, pulling her hands away from the chair. Chloe instantly began to scream, her high-pitched voice echoing off the high ceilings of the restaurant. She yelled that it was a setup, that I was a liar, and that Ethan was using his tech background to frame an innocent family. She even tried to physically wrench her arm free, but the detective firmly twisted her wrists behind her back, snapping the cuffs onto her wrists with a cold metallic click. Ethan didn't flinch. He sat completely still, casually watching the absolute implosion of the 2 women who had spent their entire lives treating me like a personal bank account. I didn't cry. I didn't scream back at them. I just sat there, feeling a profound sense of relief wash over my body for the first time in 10 years.
As the detectives began leading them toward the revolving glass doors of the restaurant, my mother turned her head back to look at me. Her face was distorted with pure rage, spitting out that I was an ungrateful monster and that she wished she had never given birth to me. I just stared back at her, completely unmoved, watching her get pushed into the back of a waiting police cruiser on the busy Boston street outside.
The fallout was immediate and devastating for them. Because Ethan's digital forensic report was so incredibly thorough, the district attorney didn't even offer them a lenient plea deal. Their bail was set at $50,000 each, an amount they couldn't possibly raise since they had maxed out every credit card to their names. 2 days later, Marcus Vance was picked up by state troopers at his apartment, caught red-handed with the fraudulent financial documents and the Lexus that had been illegally registered using my stolen Social Security number. He tried to call my office line from the precinct, weeping into the receiver, begging me to speak to the prosecutors. He claimed my mother only did it out of love for him. I let him finish his sentence, told him that his name was now officially on an IRS tax evasion indictment, and blocked the number permanently. With my mother, sister, and stepfather locked behind bars awaiting trial, the heavy dark cloud that had hovered over my entire adult life finally vanished. The remaining 2 weeks before our wedding were the most peaceful days Ethan and I had ever shared. My father's extended family, who had cut my mother off decades ago due to her toxic manipulation, completely stepped up to support us. They flew into Boston early, helped us reorganize our seating charts, and even hired a private security team for our wedding venue just in case anyone tried to cause a scene on our big day. When the wedding day finally arrived, it was absolutely flawless. Walking down the aisle in my white dress, looking at Ethan standing at the altar with a genuine, protective smile on his face, I realized a beautiful truth. True family isn't defined by bloodlines, DNA, or shared last names. It's defined by the people who protect you when you are weak, the people who respect your boundaries, and the people who would rather build a future with you than steal from your hard work. 3 months later, the criminal court finalized their sentences. My mother was sentenced to 4 years in a federal correctional facility for her lead role in the identity theft and wire fraud. Chloe, due to her clean prior record, was given 2 years in state prison, along with 500 hours of mandatory community service, and a strict legal restitution order to pay back every single cent she had fraudulently spent. Sitting in our new suburban home just outside of Boston, watching the autumn leaves fall across our backyard, I finally felt completely safe. My credit score had been fully restored by the bureaus after they reviewed the state police reports, and my name was entirely cleared. My family had targeted me for my money, but in their blind greed, the only thing they truly managed to secure was their own downfalls.